Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. The thing that I think is so interesting is your film is one of the shortest that I've seen, like for this year and this award season. But I've been thinking about it so much, and it's so like I was sort of just thinking about it all day yesterday. It was just so impactful and
Wow,
so
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. It's just so I in a weird way, it was sort of like I can't believe what I'm watching, and it felt like in a way that I know it's based on a true story, but I was just like it felt like almost like I was watching a documentary, and it was just really I don't know I was just really yeah it's just been with me this whole time. Um
Wow, that's a great compliment. The
sure.
biggest, in fact, I think a filmmaker can get. So thank you again.
Sure. Um I guess the first question that I wanted to know from you or ask you is that well, one of my favorite things about the movie is I think that it really uh knocks us off kilter with the editing, the way you do switch perspectives from like the first 2 minutes we switch from maybe someone's iPhone to surveillance camera to just like the camera you're shooting with. And I guess that off kilterness, if that is something that you really wanted to uh knock us around with, or what, just because I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, that was actually one of the intentions behind it was to have this mixed medium film
Hmm.
uh, and have you that as you put it, knock you off kilter.
Hmm.
But at the same time, give it a cohesive feel so it feels like all one and the same. So you're
Hmm.
constantly aware of the fact that you're being thrown from one perspective to the other, but at the same time, it all looks very, very similar. And the idea behind that is that's the experience we get online, where
Mm.
we don't know what we're looking at. We don't know whose point of view we're looking at when we see a piece of media online, yet it all looks almost evenly the same um,
Mm.
because we're looking at from a distance through the medium. So yeah, that was the idea to give it to homogenize the different mediums and the different recording mechanisms
Yeah.
and make it feel part of one, but at the same time, not let you forget that you're looking at very different points of view.
Fine. Yeah, it sort of even reminded me about how, in a lot of times, I mean, we're unfortunately seeing it already with all the coverage of what is happening in between Israel and Gaza, is that we are seeing a lot of, I feel like a lot of it, especially at the beginning, a lot of people are just hurling footage online, and then a lot of, they were saying, this is what this is. And then we find out maybe days later that the footage that we've seen and then we've had a response to was not what it was described as.
Yeah.
I kept thinking that the whole time I was watching the film too. It was just like sometimes I'm so glad that you said that we we click for maybe our phone, that we get like a news notification on like CNN, and then maybe we hop on our laptop and we see an ad on Twitter that shows us one thing. So it does sort of feel like our news and our information that we're getting is sort of like a patchwork quilt almost, even though
Yeah.
I don't it's really kind of crazy how we
That's a great way of putting it. We're getting a patchwork quilt of media
yeah.
and information, and good luck picking which one of those is true and which one is false. And
Yeah, it feels
that's
yeah, and
that's
it's kind of like we're all so busy, and we're also like I don't know, I feel like we all now collectively have like the attention span of nothing, so it feels like we see stuff and we sometimes don't even know what we're looking at, and then we put down our phones and it just kind of like lives in our brain somewhere.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think there was that documentary that went around on Netflix. I can't remember, it was about a year and a half ago or so, where we actually got CEOs and former CFOs of big tech companies
Hmm.
saying they now admit that they've developed something they didn't realize that they were developing at the time. And now that they no longer work at those companies, they said it was, yeah, they've created an ecosystem online where we're not being fed truth, we're being fed what we want to hear. Whether that's true or false is irrelevant.
Oh God.
And yeah, it was very disturbing but it was a very poignant documentary, and reinforced for me the reasoning for making Perspectives, the short film that we
Mm,
talked.
okay. I wanted to ask about well, I guess I wanted to maybe just from you in a general sense. Maybe I should have asked this first, but like I said at the top, it's based on a true story. I guess I just wanted to know from you, since we're talking about collecting information and presenting it and how we receive information, how did like maybe you hear about the story first, and how did you collect, I guess, like video research and stuff like that in order to present this in a different way?
It's a good question. Look, I think the reason it resonated with people and the reason it won the St. Kilda Film Festival and qualified for the Academy Awards in 2024 is that it has that essence of authenticity,
Hmm.
mixed in within a effectively a narrative film. So
Hmm.
a narrative film is never going to be 100% truth. It's not a documentary. It's fiction, but within that is so much authenticity. In this particular instance, I think that people have resonated with it, and one of the reasons it's so authentic is, as you said, it's based on true story. So that's I think one of the strengths of the film is that. And the true story came from me. I was the soldier that it originally happened to, and it stayed with me. The event stayed with me to the point
Mm,
where it made me want to tell the story, because I felt there was more to it than met the eye. And yeah, lo and behold, so it
mm,
became a short film.
God. Wow. Um, something that I enjoyed about the film is one, it's not enjoyed, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but the way that you directed the scene of when the girl picks up the gun and she walks towards the guy who's staring at her. I was just very curious. You guys are in like a controlled tight space. You're in a bus, on which I'm always impressed when directors are able to pull off that amount of tension. Um, I guess I just wanted to know from you what kind of direction you may have given uh the girl who has the gun and the gentleman who she's walking towards, just because I feel like maybe their eyes are connected as she's standing up and walking towards him. And it's a really palpable, really scary uh, moment. I just wanted to know, like, maybe what kind of guidance you gave them there.
That is actually hilarious that you just said that, and quite ironic actually as well. The
Why?
fact that you said the eyes, because that was the thing we kept saying
Oh,
on
really?
set with to each other was eyes, because it was all
Mm,
about the eye contact between them. Uh, Everything about that, the whole setup in the bus, the whole bus was to facilitate that eye contact.
mm,
We specifically sought out that bus, that type of bus, so that we can have the man sit there opposite her on the other side of the bus and have them face each other so we can have that contact, that eye
mm,
contact. And then within the performances, we kept reiterating the eyes as the means of communicating with each other, and to get them to talk to each other with the eyes. And
mm-hmm.
so and so throughout the day, you'd hear me shout from the back of the bus, "Eyes!" And they would shout back at me, "Eyes, we get it." So that's why I was laughing right now when you said eyes.
Oh, that's funny.
That is exactly what we used. Um, so that was one thing. The other thing we used was the switch, as I called it.
Okay.
And I'd say each one of them has a moment in which they switch from one mode to the other mode. So you
Mm,
have a couple on the way home, going about their day, and
yeah.
they'd be lovey-dovey enjoying their day. And that's one mode of being. But then there's a moment where I wanted to see a switch, and switch from being a couple to being now suspicious.
Mm,
And the idea was to facilitate that switch in the performance, and that's I wanted them to bear in mind the moment that they're feeling in love and the moment that they disconnect their emotions from that from that love moment and focus in on their suspect. And I told them we're going to create a switch, and you're going to flick that switch on at the
Mhm.
right time, and you're going to. I'm not going to tell you when it's going to happen. You're going to determine when that's going to happen. But we're going to have enough cameras on you to
Mhm.
catch it. And we did, and we got for both of them the moment where there's that switch, and you see it. There's two different types of joy. The
Mhm.
actress's name was Joy, and there's two different types of joy, one before and one after the switch.
Okay.
Um, so that's one little trick that we used, and the other one was the eyes, which was very funny that you mentioned it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, the I don't know, there's something about even how the gentleman who's escorted off the bus, the way it's actually before I say that, there's a moment where when because I like to go in as blind as possible with a lot of these films. And I went in as blind as I could with this, and I wasn't sure when you see the couple being all lovey-dovey on the back of the bus, and then when they see the guy watching them, I was like, oh, is this going to be like a homophobic something? But then when she stands up and she like pulls the gun out, I was like, ho, no, this is a completely different thing.
yeah.
And the thing that I wanted to say that I was so drawn into about a choice, whether it's directorially or with the script, is that like the gentleman barely says anything or he says nothing like the entire time.
He never says a word.
He never
Yeah,
says a word. First of all, that actor communicates so much with his face.
yeah,
Um,
he's phenomenal.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's great. Yeah.
Carlos Calzunzi. Yeah.
I did want to ask about a moment after um they're off the bus, if I could. I was really curious about her helping him zip up his coat. I wanted to know if that was just um an apology, if that because she gets back on the bus when people around her are saying, you know, oh, he's humiliated. Everyone is like eyes on him watching the bus go by when he's not on it anymore. And I was just curious, maybe I'm reading too much into that gesture.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah, can you
that
tell me about
that was 100% intentional. The idea was that
that?
up until the zipping of the until he zipped up his jacket and showed her there's a bandage, there's no
Mhm.
bomb there. She hadn't seen a real person beneath the surface. All she saw was the surface.
Mhm.
So it's a metaphorical gesture to she's literally seeing under the surface there and metaphorically seeing under the surface.
Mhm.
But once she's seen under the surface and realized, holy shit, no, I got this wrong. I racially stereotyped. She changes again. There's another
Mhm.
switch moment there, and you can see it on her face. The apology that she
Yeah.
expressed. She's without saying I'm sorry. She expresses I'm sorry, and without saying I forgive you, he says I forgive you. And there's a moment there where they
Mhm.
both come together, where he says I forgive you, but at the same time I understand why you did this. It's not for no reason. And she
Mhm.
says, that's right. I am sorry. We are both effectively victims of the circumstance. There's no right or wrong. It's just we have to do that. I had to do that, but at the same time, did I?
Mhm.
And it's a conundrum that expresses the situation that Israel is in. It's like, yeah, kind of damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. And you're between that rock and a hard place. And that's where she found herself.
Mhm.
And the gesture of zipping the jacket back up is her saying, the only good thing I can do for you right now is undo what I have done. She opened the jacket, she forced him to open it up, so she's now zipping it up for him. So it's a gesture of goodwill. And I'm glad you picked up on that. Yeah, it was trying to reverse what she had done effectively.
Yeah, I felt like she was sort of saying she was like in this moment I've sort of taken away a little bit of like I've embarrassed you. I've taken a little bit away of your dignity and I'm trying as much as I'm trying to give it back to you as much as I possibly can.
That's it. Yeah,
I think there's a lot and I think that's such a you know rich thing that you guys did with just zoop. That's all you guys did there. You guys don't see you don't point it out with dialogue. I think that's really effective. Um, I wanted to know if a million people are asking you about what happens at the end, because I love that you cut the camera so abruptly.
Yeah.
And I feel like I just wondered if people were running up to you and just shaking you by the shoulders and be like, I need to know what happens. Um, but yeah, I guess I just wanted to know with the final image, you sort of you peak something in our head, or like you show us how the characters are continually thinking of this, and I guess I just wanted to know, leaving us with such a potentially foreboding image. I think that's really ballsy. Yeah, I just want to know if you could just tell me about that choice.
It was again deliberate. The idea
Yeah.
was to leave the viewer with an open ending,
Hmm.
because with an open ending, we're effectively turning the question back onto you. What do you think happened?
Hmm.
And by asking you, what do you think happened? We're forcing you to fill the gaps. I think it was this, or I think it was
Yeah.
that. Whichever answer you give depends on your own perspective. And
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to bring you back to the concept above the whole film, which is, how did you form that idea? Where did your opinion come from
Mm-hmm.
that made you think this is going to be the ending after that last frame? And that's the whole point of the film, is how did that perspective in your mind form about
Mm-hmm.
that last image? And yeah, I'm glad that enough people, it sounds like you two came up to me and said, I don't know, but I think this and I maybe think that, but it stayed with me and it made me think about it. And that's the whole point. It's supposed to make you think about it. It's supposed to make you think about how you formed your opinion in the
Yeah.
first place about it, because it's a loaded subject. We both know that it's an incendiary subject matter that people come to with a preconceived notion one way or another, no matter
Hmm.
where you sit on the side of politics. And the question is, how did that opinion form? What facts and information did you base that opinion on? And
Yeah.
that's kind of, it's supposed to question, make you question.
Because I mean, I say it all the time. Like, the thing that I don't like is, I think we have, in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years of consuming entertainment and media, I think that we are desperate to know every single answer to every single thing. And I love that you leave us in this. It's sort of like you leave us alone in the room and you turn off the light and we have to sort of figure it out. And I love that. I love that it's not a definitive answer. I think more films and more television shows need to do that. I think they need to I just say leave it in a gray area. I think that's awesome, because that's what a good film does. You, as soon as you leave it, you want to keep talking about it. And if what I think is different than what you think, that means that the film achieves something. You open up a dialogue and a conversation and to larger issues and larger topics. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you. I'm glad that that's the effect it had on you. It's again, yeah. I mean, the idea behind it was to illustrate that we don't understand necessarily how we form our opinions, and how
mhm,
we form our opinions is incredibly important, because
mm,
that's what forms our worldview and views, and that's what determines what we're going to do next. And that's
oof,
precisely what this film is trying to point out, is that we are contingent upon social media more than anything to form opinions. We don't know though if what we're consuming is truth or fact. And that's, yeah, that's what this thing is supposed to poke at.
yeah.
Poke you in the side, saying, wait a minute, how did you form that opinion? And think about that.
Well, because even you can even hear the people on the bus as she is going to sit back in her seat. You can hear how they're reacting to what they literally witnessed in front of them, and you can hear how this person's perspective is now different from this person's perspective, and it's sort of like, how are those opinions and accounts of what they just saw, how are they going to go out into the world and affect other people?
Yeah, I mean,
um
and the bus is a metaphor for Israel, which
mm,
has Jews, Christians, and Muslims living in it together, and they're all together on a journey. And as soon as the weapons come out, the journey stops, and that's kind of what literally happens in the film. But it's a
mm,
metaphor for what happens in the grander scale of Israel, as we as we can see now, happening
yeah.
in real life. And the idea is exactly that. The world is watching via social media what's happening in Israel right now, and the world is watching via social media what is happening inside the bus in the film. Again, it's the metaphor that we're trying to create,
Mm,
is that a lot of opinions are being formed around the world right now, but we don't know if those opinions are based on truth or fact.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's I think
Wow.
the dangerous part of
Yeah.
social.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I gotta say that one other thing that really surprised me is when I was watching the film and it was over and the credits were going on. The sound of the notifications
Oh,
that you
right.
played through, they sort of like I didn't realize they were coming, and the first time that I heard it, I jumped because I it was just sort of like I don't know. I think even going into the credits, maybe even suggesting that like the ping of a phone that might lead you to hear about another piece of shitty news is
Yeah.
terrifying. So I love that too, which I don't think
Oh,
I've
I'm
ever
glad you picked up on that too. Wow, this is
I've never
pretty good.
I've never talked to a director about their credits. So I've never you're the first one. Um
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Like I said, it made a big impact on me, and I can't wait for more people to see it. And
Thank you.
yeah, good luck to you. I hope, yeah, hope it gets shortlisted and even more people can take a look at it. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and good luck to you and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much, and
Yeah.
have a great day. And thanks for having me.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye bye.